Another thing that I think is an issue is injured players. Now, if you look at the last two draft classes with the 49ers, they drafted one player with a sustained injury. If you want to say Kinlaw, you want to throw that in there, whatever. Again, Kinlaw, that's more years ago. So never mind. That doesn't even count. The last two drafts, 2021, 22, one player, and that was Kalia Davis, who they took at the end of the sixth round, pick 220. And a big reason why they took Kalia Davis is because next year they have four defensive tackles currently on the roster right now on 1 year deals. So Kalia Davis is a redshirt pick at 220, right? The question they always have is, and they always say, how do we get these players on our roster? Are these players that can beat somebody out on our roster? And I think a lot of times they'll say no. They're going to sit there and say no, they're not. And Kalia Davis has a pathway to make the roster where he can start off on the NFI or the PUP, and then next year or the middle of the year step up. He can completely be redshirted because you got four defensive tackles on 1 year deals. You're not keeping all those guys. You're not going to resign all those guys. Now you have a contingency plan, which is the same way that they've been drafting on the offensive line, wide receiver, all those different spots. It just makes sense. So the last 2 years, that's the only injured player that they've drafted. Now look at the drafts before, the four before that. And then it gets kind of bad. Reuben Foster injury history, right? Traded for D Ford. Joe Williams had retired injuries and family stuff. Contavious Street had injuries. Julian Taylor in injuries. Nick Bosa even had a couple injuries, right? Jalen Hurd, good, that didn't work out. Tim Harris, Kinlaw, like, good gosh, so many. They've completely just bypassed that and said, all right, uh, we're not messing with that. And I know I, for one, I still got PTSD going through all those balky drafts where it was just like, good gosh, this dude's filling out scouting reports in the medical ward because everybody's hurt. So you got one guy, Kalia Davis. That's it. That has an ACL. And it's at a position that, again, there is no way he could make the roster right now, but he doesn't have to because it's a roster exemption because he's going to be on the NFI list. So even that whole thing, all right, all right. Oh, Dan, I didn't put this in there. I apologize. I love this. He says part of the Lynch Kyle transformation has to be the new willingness to invest in special teams. Yes, you are 1000% right. Ray McLeod, right? George Odom. You go get these guys that are going to step, Burks, Oren Burks, and you pay premium to address positions. But whether it's the drafting of Hufanga, who's now going to be, looks like the starting safety, I think that's huge. I think that's huge. Even the drafting of Mitch, like, which has just gone so bad. But you're right. Shanahan allowed his college teammate, Hightower, who's coached with him for his entirety, to walk out the door. Like, that's what I'm loving. It's about getting that ring. Special teams, even though they won that one game for us in Green Bay, which was awesome, was just trash, or I'll bring back one of my favorite words, abysmal, nonstop for 5 years in a row. And so that's one thing I'm excited to see the development there because it's got to change. It was so bad. It was so bad. And so now I think that's going to be better. Very good. Very good.